Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to a Tuesday edition of On Cue. As always, I am your host, Rich Quinones. We are powered by our good friends from SR 1029 FM, The Game, coming at you from their remote studios. Also, don't forget, we are powered by our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. And of course, Play It Again Sports, two locations, Deptford and Mount Laurel. Check us out on X platform and, of course, Kicks, Rumble, Millions.co, and the YouTube channel. Hope everyone had a good Sports Monday. You are enjoying your 10th of February 2026. A lot of NFL to get into. We'll give you the numbers, the viewing audience for our guy, Bad Bunny, who is a bad man. We'll get to the viewing numbers on that. And how about this? A little bit of juice going on in the NBA. I mean, finally waking up in the NBA. And what did we get last night? We got a little bit of a brawl brewing and cooking. So we will dive into that. But I wanted to mention a couple things and kind of carry over from yesterday's show as we pretty much put a bow on the Super Bowl. And I'll say this, everyone, when you look at viewership, because that's what everyone is so, they get so tangled in the viewership, right? And if it's a competitive game, is it a good game? Is it a bad game? Is it a weak game? Look, I thought it was arguably one of the worst games I've ever seen, Super Bowl wise, but it drew 127 million, which basically matched the record set in 2025. And I know that there are all these different numbers being floated out there when it comes to the halftime performance. And some people are pushing narratives that basically halftime show tanked. It was down 39%, 26.5 million households watched, 48 million tuned into the game. That's not accurate. So that's what we talked about yesterday, pushing the propaganda nonsense. That's not accurate at all. I mean, think about this. You can argue that he basically kept people locked in to watch the second half of the game, which ultimately was a snooze fest. I mean, you had the Turning Point broadcast that did 5 million. You had Bad Bunny that did 127. I mean, and I was reading that also bots were lined up, right? I mean, bots, like legit viewership was maybe 1 million for the Turning Point. And then for Bad Bunny, it was 120 plus million, 83 to 120 plus. Like you're hearing these numbers, 90 million to 120 plus. I mean, I think it's hilarious. I do. I think it's absolutely hilarious for those that kept saying we're not watching, we're not watching, we're not watching. The game itself stunk. The game itself was bad. But if we're going to sit here and we're going to try to wax poetic and we're going to have to, figure out a way to push our own agenda and narrative when it comes to, the viewing audience. I mean, listen, in one of the worst Super Bowls I've ever seen, the halftime show got the most eyeballs. Halftime show got the most eyeballs in a game that was horrible. So you can sit there and say all you want about if you liked it, if you didn't like it, if it was your cup of tea, if it wasn't your cup of tea. Huh. You watched. You watched. You absolutely watched. And again, whether you like it or not, a lot of people did in a game that, quite frankly, was just horrible. I was thinking about this more and more. And I don't know what you guys think, but is it possible that was the worst Super Bowl game we've ever seen? I mean, it was not competitive. The numbers for the first half offensively for the New England Patriots were horrible. They were absolutely horrible. Like, what's the takeaway? We talked a lot about this yesterday about winning 14 games, being a fraudulent team. Maybe your quarterback's not as good as some people thought because it was, numbers, hollow numbers during the regular season. And I get it. He had the issue with the shoulder. He's going to go out there, hit after hit. You commend the kid for being tough. Nothing but respect for Drake May. But he played one of the worst Super Bowl games I've ever seen a quarterback play. And that game, I thought, was one of the worst games I've ever seen. It was bad. It was absolutely bad. It wasn't competitive. It was a lopsided game. And now, last year, lopsided. This year, lopsided. And as we talked a lot yesterday, I don't even know if New England's going to be nearly as good next year. I just don't know. I know they're going to stick with the offensive line. And Mike Grable came out and he said, look, man, we're going to keep Campbell at left tackle. I just don't know if that's the play. I really don't. But it gives hope, as I mentioned, to other teams because I think the New England Patriots flat out overachieved. I think the New England Patriots flat out overachieved. They really did. And like I said, the viewership, we love the viewership. I'm fascinated by the viewership. And I love these numbers that are being pushed depending upon who you're listening to. What network you got locked in, right? Because his halftime show broke the all-time viewership record. I mean, think about it. And basically, you had pre-recorded audience on the other show, like Fugazi, fraudulent Fugazi. So for those that couldn't stand it, well, the numbers speak for themselves. And I get it. Everyone with the woke. And Stephen A. Smith, Solitary Smith. It would have been nice if he would have, did a little bit in English. That's not what he's going to do. I mean, seriously, that was the whole point. Do you not get it? Like, go back to friggin', I'll wake you next August. Like, go back to playing solitaire. Do you not get it? Seriously, there was nothing disgusting about it. It was entertainment. It was art. That's it. It was entertainment, and it was drawing eyeballs to the masses. It was being outlandish. It was being controversial. Controversial. Oh, by the way, the same thing that some of these talking heads do every day. The same thing that some of these talking heads do every day. I mean, there's reasons why some of these guys and some of these talking heads back the POTUS, and they don't want to go against the grain. So when Stephen A says something like that, I mean, come on. Just stop. Stop. And like I said, you can, wherever you lay your hat, I know it causes controversy. I know it's the division, so to speak, right? I understand all of that. I understand all of it, but millions enjoyed themselves. Millions watched. Millions were dancing. Millions were energized. Millions appreciated that it hit the Spanish speaking areas, the Spanish speaking audience. Obviously, he basically said he's going to do it in Spanish. So, like, what are we doing? I'm sorry. In music, there's a lot of songs I've listened to and a lot of artists where they're speaking different languages. I have no idea what the song is. I mean, obviously, Spanish is different, but I have no idea what some of these other songs are, but I enjoy the music. So, as I said, ultimately, look, at the end of the day, man, I'm telling you, people liked it, people didn't like it. But from yesterday's conversation, for the comments that we were getting in, okay, again, it's if it's your cup of tea, it's your cup of tea. If it's not your cup of tea, it's your not cup of tea. But everyone's talking about it. Everyone's been talking about it, and it almost masks the issue that it was a horrible football game. It was a horrible football game, and I would argue that it was one of the worst played games I can recall. I can recall. It was one of the worst games I've ever seen. The quarterback, Drake May, was bad. Sam Darnold was okay. Sam Darnold wasn't great. The offense has left something to be desired. Now, I'm not going to start sticking Seattle's defense like some of the other guys, top 5 of all time. I remember that Ravens squad in 2000 against the Giants. If it's not for Ron Dixon taking a kickoff the distance, well, here we go. You're getting your first shutout in Super Bowl history. It was a bad game. The NFL this year, I think, was a watered down product. I think the NFL, you like the parody, but also the product wasn't that good. The Denver Broncos would have gave Seattle a much better game. They would have gave Seattle a much better game. It would have been more entertaining, especially if you had Drake May. I'm sorry, Bo Nix. Especially if you had Bo Nix. It would have been a more entertaining day. I mean, it was just a bad. It was just overall the product stunk, and that's why it had no juice. It had no buzz because there were no sexy storylines to this game. Seriously, there were no sexy storylines, and now it's back to back. It's back to back. And I'm not going to, I love when you go outdoors and you play in pristine conditions. I absolutely love it. I do. Now you feel bad. And I see some guys commenting because, Sam Darnold got a chunk of that money taken out. Obviously, CA, the tax, we get it. California. But it was just not a good game. And it gives this false hope, this false sense of security to some of these teams thinking, well, we can make a run like New England. I think it was an aberration. I really do. And I think they overachieved. And I think they were basically walking into a lion's den. A lion's den, to be quite honest. 15 pass, or I should say 32 past 2 o'clock hour. Joey chimes in. Other halftime show is just as bad, both just horrendously produced. We move onwards and upwards to the draft or baseball or the NBA, which had a nice little brawl last night. Between this year's Super Bowl and next year's Super Bowl players' tax rate, California tax is upwards of 54%. NFL needs to get the Super Bowl back to Florida, Texas, etc. ASAP. Yeah, Florida would be great. It was a great stadium. It was a great crowd, great venue. But you're right. I mean, Sam Darnold, I think he lost, 80 something thousand? It's brutal. I mean, that's kind of a drop in a hat. But, again, you got the jock tax, right, in the U.S. We always talk about the jock tax. That's not a good thing. But the game itself, it had no feel. And you know what's interesting too? And we talked about this a lot yesterday. The game itself, we didn't mention one thing. I don't think I came on yesterday mentioning one aspect of a game that I think a lot of people were like, oh, here we go again. Here we go again. That was the referees. That was the umpiring, the officiating. I mean, that was as clean as a game as I can remember from that standpoint. But other than that, I'm looking around right now and, we look at the odds for next year, for next season. I mean, Seattle's got to be right there. They got that squad's coming back. I don't believe they're going to get fat in the offseason, and they got money to spend. I don't know too much. New England, they're definitely going to have to look for some offensive weapons, and I still doubt that offensive line. Now, does it give hope? What New England did this past season, does it give hope to teams like Chicago, Carolina, the Texans, maybe the Colts with a healthy quarterback, Jacksonville, to make that type of run? So when you look at the AFC, New England wins 14, Buffalo wins 12 games, Pittsburgh in a down AFC North won 10, and actually a stronger AFC South. Remember, the Colts started off 8-3, and then they lost 6 straight, 5 of 6, I believe, to close the season. 7-2, 8-3. Jacksonville wins 13 games. Houston wins 12 games. Denver wins 14 games. The Chargers win 11 games. Look, the AFC is stacked. The AFC is stacked. Now, we want to overvalue what Chicago did, going 11-6. The NFC South stunk. And then the NFC West had 3 very good teams, including your Super Bowl winner in Seattle, along with the Rams, who were in the NFC Championship, and the Niners, who got to the divisional round. Then you have the Eagles in the NFC East. But does it give false hope to some of these teams? Does it give false hope? And look, ultimately, what are you measured by? You're talking wins and losses. That's it. That's what you're measured by. New headphones, who this? AKA He 12 Man, AKA Heisman, AKA Steeler Nation, AKA Duval, also affectionately known as Vince, chimes in. Can we talk about Sam Darnold? He's not better today than we thought he was before the game. Still today's Trent Dilfer. No, much better than Trent Dilfer. Stop. Come on. Listen, you wanted Darnold to go 20 of 28 for 286 and 3 touchdowns. And if he did that and he won the Super Bowl MVP, your opinion is not changing when it comes to Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold basically exercises demons because no matter what type of numbers he put up or he didn't put up, he won a Super Bowl. He won a Super Bowl. And Minnesota's got to be kicking themselves. You let that guy walk for J.J. McCarthy and you're going to have to get a bridge quarterback right now? Look, I get it. It's kind of like the halftime show. To each his own, not your cup of tea. Sam Darnold is not your cup of tea. You don't like Sam Darnold. But Sam Darnold also, with 2 different teams, won 14 games. Sam Darnold got to the Super Bowl. Sam Darnold won a freaking Super Bowl. So if you guys want to sit there and still not believe in Sam Darnold, I don't think he really gives a shit, to be quite honest. And even if he would have went for 365 and 4 touchdowns, you're still not going to buy into him because you have a bias against Sam Darnold. And he's had a better career than Trent Dilfer, period. And by the way, Trent Dilfer made one friggin' throw in that game. That's all that was. Trent Dilfer made one throw in that Super Bowl to Brandon Stokely. Other than that, it was all up to the Baltimore Ravens defense. I mean, I know that game like the back of my hand. I know that game like the back of my hand. And I got news for you. You know, Trent Dilfer couldn't hold Sam Darnold's jock. You want to sit there and say sometimes these quarterbacks have their moment and they're not good quarterbacks and they don't have a great career. That's fine. Guys can have an obscure career and have their moment. We've seen it. We have seen it. We have seen it a lot. And I think right now, Sam Darnold is a late bloomer. Sam Darnold, everyone's going to expect Sam Darnold to win 12, 13, 14 games next year and throw for 4,500 yards and 30 touchdowns. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. Maybe they get back to the Super Bowl and win it again. Then what's the conversation? It's not like the quarterbacking playing the NFL is that good. It's not. There's what, 5, 6, 7 really good quarterbacks in the NFL? I think we can all agree. 4, 5, 6, 7 really good quarterbacks. And the rest, I mean, you got bridge quarterbacks. You have bridge quarterbacks. Tom and Summers Point Q, without a doubt, one of the worst games I've ever seen. You know, I'm an Eagles fan. Last year was a blowout. I enjoyed it. Up 34-0. I was getting, what faced, and I was just loving the moment. That's different. You're an Eagles fan. You're an Eagles fan. You're up 34-0 against Kansas City. You're about to break the dynasty and win another friggin' Super Bowl, or win your second Super Bowl, and Kansas City's going for a three-peat. That's a hell of a win by the Philadelphia Eagles in a game that was not remotely close. It wasn't remotely close, period. T chimes in from Violent. Oh, Q. Used to listen to you on the dial 1360. Wow. It's going back. Good to catch you on the YouTube channel. I know you're talking about some of these quarterbacks, but I'll agree with you. There's maybe 3 or 4 in my estimation. Top tier quarterbacks. The rest are hit and miss. T, good to hear from you, brother. I would say we know the usual suspects. I mean, we'll go on the guys. We'll go on the premise that Patrick Mahomes comes back fully healthy. But right now, what's interesting is this. So Drake May now, all of a sudden, everyone is garbage. He's trash. Drake May's not a good quarterback, right? That's all I'm hearing. Drake May stinks. I can't believe people were actually thinking this kid was the MVP. You're talking about a second-year quarterback. A second-year quarterback that basically, put up statistically very good numbers and won 14 games on a team that I don't think a lot of people expected to make a run. And they did, not only with their defense, but their offense during the regular season when they averaged 28. I can't come on the air on a Tuesday, 2 days removed from, a bad performance by a young quarterback in his second season and bury the kid. Was he exposed? Yeah. Did he get rattled? Absolutely. Seattle knew exactly what they were doing defensively. They knew every play pretty much out of the playbook that New England was trying to run. And New England never got their ground game going. You saw that the offensive line was a sieve, and it put pressure on Drake May. And as I say this with a lot of quarterbacks, and I'm not defending the performance because I crushed it yesterday, you stick any quarterback back there in that situation with that offensive line against that defense, he was going to struggle. He was going to struggle. And, it's very easy to sit there and say that he's not a good quarterback, and everyone wants to say Fugazi fraud. I think the Patriots as a whole got exposed because they were never truly tested this past season, especially against a defense like Seattle. That doesn't mean Drake May is a bad quarterback. He's a second-year quarterback, okay, that you saw got rattled, was seeing ghosts, running around for his life. The pocket was not comfortable, missing throws, missing plays, had to revert back to scrambling here and there, and it just wasn't his afternoon. Now, how he handles it going forward is going to be the key. But to your point about the quarterbacks in the NFL, I mean, again, let's just have a serious conversation. How many really good quarterbacks are there in the NFL? How many? How many really good quarterbacks are there in the NFL? Joey says conference championship games are real football. Electric atmosphere, players amped up, real football fans, Super Bowl corporate event for the NFL. Lack of atmosphere sucks. I don't think that's it though. I don't. I don't think that's it. I think the NFL is an event. It's always been an event though. We've gotten some great Super Bowls. We've had some really classic Super Bowls. We've had down to the wire Super Bowls. I mean, there have been some good games, but sometimes there are games that are just absolutely blowouts. And we've dealt with that. I mean, again, let's go back. If we go back, if you start from, let's just say 2000, you had the Rams and the Titans. That was a classic Super Bowl. Mike Jones, remember? Okay. The Ravens blew out the Giants, but then you had New England and the Rams, and that was a classic Super Bowl, right? John Madden basically saying, I think they should, be conservative, and Brady slinging it, and Vinatieri with the field goal, and that starts that dynasty, 20-17. So then you get Tampa and Oakland. That was a blowout, so that's one. And the Ravens, that's two. The Patriots and Carolina, another field goal, close. New England, Philadelphia, close. Pittsburgh, Seattle, that was an ugly game. We'll say three. Indianapolis and the Bears was Giants and New England, close. Pittsburgh and Arizona, classic. New Orleans and Indianapolis, not a bad game. Not a bad game, onside kick. But if you want to say blowout, whatever, I don't believe it was. Green Bay and Pittsburgh, close. Giants and New England, close. Baltimore and San Fran, close. Seattle against Denver was a blowout. New England against Seattle, classic. Denver against Carolina, blowout. New England against Atlanta, classic. Philly against New England, classic. New England against the Rams, snooze fest. Kansas City against the 49ers, Tampa against the Chiefs, blowout. So there's three right there. The Rams, Cincinnati, close. Kansas City, Eagles, close. Kansas City, San Francisco, close, right? Unbelievable game, 25-22. Philly and Kansas City, blowout. Seattle and New England, blowout. So I'm talking 26 Super Bowls. 4 of them have been blowouts. 4 of them have been blowouts. So you guys want to sit there and say, these games are not competitive. Well, it just so happens that sometimes the games aren't competitive. Sometimes the games are bad. They are. They are. Sometimes the games are absolutely bad. And we got one of those games. And I think it's also, you get the week off. But what was the storyline? Last year, the storyline was, can Kansas City three-peat? How good is this Eagles team? Do you like this Eagles team? Do you like the head coach? What can Saquon do? Jalen Hurts, is he a legit quarterback? How much gas is left in the tank for Andy Reid, Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes? There was no juice in this game. None. None. And we saw it play out on the field. That's the problem. That's the problem. We saw it play out on the field. A lackluster type of performance. Right? Xavier chimes in. Q, thanks for bringing up the Bad Bunny. Let's just be honest. That show reminded millions of viewers of something geography never forget. America's a continent. The United States is just one country in it. Everyone's going to have their opinion. Everyone, listen, I understand when you guys, globally what people refer to the U.S. I get it, right? I mean, but, come on, stop. I knew once you start opening up these can of worms, right? Emily chimes in. Q, excellent thoughts on Bad Bunny. I, for one, absolutely enjoyed it. As you said, not everyone's going to enjoy it. Cup of tea, to each his own. Yep. I couldn't even tell you the commercials. I really couldn't tell you even the commercials. I'm trying to think, what was probably the best commercial? Every commercial was tech, chat GPT, phone stuff, right? Bitcoin. What was it? You had the one Duncan commercial with Affleck and Brady and Jennifer Aniston. Other than that, the commercial stunk. Stunk. Not good. Not good at all. I thought they were boring. So the game itself, like I said, probably one of the worst games I've ever seen in a long time. All right, so you got a little off season, a little hot stove baseball. We'll get into later on in the week. And I mentioned this. I started the show off, and I got a lot coming in with the game itself. I'll read into them. But how about this? So I'm flipping around the dial last night. I'm watching a hell of a game between St. John's and Xavier. St. John's beat UConn, right? And then they basically, um, had a dogfight and got past Xavier. I'm flipping around the dial and I'm thinking to myself, all right, let me see what's going on in the association. You guys know I love the hoops. I'm a hoops guy, right? Flipping, flipping, flipping. All right, here we go. The Nets put on 123. The Jazz and the Heat, that's a competitive game. I was kind of laughing a little bit late because the Sixers gave up 135, zero bench. And then we get a little juice in the NBA. We get a little juice between the Pistons and the Hornets. 4 players got tossed. You had a fight last night in the association between Detroit and Charlotte. You had Debate, Bridges. You got Jalen Duran. You got Isaiah Stewart that got into it. Now, what's funny about this whole brawl is that one of the culprits, Stewart, left the bench. So he turns around. So basically, what you had is Duran had the ball. He was pretty much going to the basket, and I think he had like 7 or 8 minutes left in the third quarter. He got fouled hard. Turns around, what happened? Doing a little barking, let's kind of butt heads. Then he pushes the player in the face, and then all of a sudden, an open right hand. And that basically set off a brouhaha confrontation. I think it went on for about 30, 35 seconds, right? And then boom, we'll police it, little presence on the floor, calm down, get back to your neutral corner. And you had Tobias Harris, the crafty young, the veteran, right? Holding back, I think, one of the players. And then the same player threw a punch to Duran. Duran walked away. And then Bridges charged at him. And then you see Stewart leaving the bench to confront Bridges, who responds with a friggin' punch. And they're going back and forth. And then at one point, this is crazy because we haven't really seen this type of fracas nonsense in the NBA since the Malice and Palace, which that was crazy. But Stewart basically gets him in a headlock. And you got a couple of these blows to the head now. Repeat offender. So I don't want to hear this nonsense about 5 or 10 games. I don't want to hear that nonsense. To me, I'm probably, if I'm Isaiah Stewart, if I'm the NBA, okay, and by the way, you had 4 players ejected. You cannot leave the bench, but it was a punkish move, to be quite honest, by Stewart. I'm tagging him with at least 20 to 25 games. I mean, that's the biggest story to come out of the NBA in a long time, aside from the gambling stuff. He wasn't even in the game when the brawl began. But you enter the court, you come off the bench, you confront a player, and then all of a sudden, you're throwing haymakers. Not a good look. Not a good look. And like I said, I've watched enough NBA. This kid's an instigator. He's not a first-time offender. He's not. And you can't come off the bench. And I think the NBA has to, again, hammer it down. They have to lay the wood. I mean, Adam Silver has just done this disappearing act, but I'm thinking 20 to 25 games. It's exactly, that's what I'm going with, 20 to 25 games. I mean, you finally got something last night, a little juice with the NBA. Not for a good reason, because the product has been horrible. It's been horrible this season. I mean, listen, I'm telling you right now, the NBA, I've said it, they have a major problem on their hands. And it's not even if we're trying to gloss over the fact that you have tanking going on as we speak. As we speak. And nobody wants to do anything about it. It's bad. It's bad. It really is bad. Sar chimes in. I'm not going to say worst Super Bowl of all time. I still remember that Tampa-Oakland Super Bowl. Remember back in the day, Washington over Denver, San Fran over Denver, San Fran over the Chargers. Those were blowouts, my friend. Yeah, they were bad. But I gave you 26 years worth of Super Bowls, and there were 4 of them that were blowouts. 4 of them that were blowouts. Joe D chimes in. Q, I know you mentioned this yesterday on Monday's show. I thought you brought up a very interesting point. Imagine if the Eagles were able to get by Seattle and play in Sunday's game. Would the outcome have been different? So you're saying would the Eagles have beaten New England? I don't think the Eagles were getting past Seattle, to be quite honest with you. If the Eagles are in that Super Bowl, yeah, I can see them beating New England. It might have been a low scoring game. It could have been a low scoring game, but who knows? KC chimes in. I'm a diehard Jets fan. Brutal season, brutal off season. I know you don't want to hear this, but what about your guy, Captain Kirk? What about him as a bridge quarterback? I don't know if Kirk Cousins wants to play for the Jets, but again, there will be a bridge quarterback conversation, right? Q chimes in. Q, how about it? QJ, personally don't understand the outrage. Who cares? It's not that big of a deal. They do something different every year in the Super Bowl. Appreciate you talking about it, but again, it's not going to affect my life. Effing clown society we're living in. Yeah, that's true. That is true. Yeah, but the Kirk Cousins conversation is interesting because a lot of these teams are going to need a bridge quarterback. Jets are going to need a quarterback. Arizona is going to need a quarterback. Miami's going to need a quarterback. I'm still going to argue I have no idea what the hell the Browns are going to do at the quarterback position. As much as some Browns fans and Sanders fans don't want to hear that. I don't know how it's going to play out. But it shows you. It shows you the, the rinse and repeat of the NFL. That's all it is. It's rinse and repeat with some of these quarterbacks. Either we're giving up on them too soon, we're not evaluating them properly, or the lack of patience. DJ chimes in. Q, thank you for actually saying it out loud yesterday. People were just afraid of a Spanish halftime. I didn't say it like that, DJ. What I basically said is, Spanish is not your cup of tea. It's not your cup of tea. Don't mix, the words. But I know exactly what you're saying, and I appreciate the passion with the tweet. Thank you. All right, let me get to a couple more comments in here as well. And don't forget, we're powered by our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee, Three Brooks Bourbon. Get ready with tea. Played Against Sports. Close to the 3 o'clock hour. Don't forget, we're on SR 1029 FM. The Game, AUDACY app, search, download, check out Coastal Sports Digital Network. We will get into a little more of the NBA. We'll kind of run down the association, a lot more of the NFL talk. We got a little power hour on this Tuesday. Keep it locked in. Quick timeout. We will certainly come back on the other side with more of your comments. All right, fast approaching 3. We will get to more comments. Vince chimes in. You've seen the clip of T getting spicy with Franklin about household names in basketball and football. T is way out of bounds on that, in my opinion. I did not see that clip. I did not see that clip. Jonathan chimes in. Q, I'm going to say about 20, 25 games. It's going to be a lot. Think about it. Not a first-time offender left the bench. Can't have it. Agree. I agree. But the NBA got what they wanted, something to friggin' talk about because, like I said, the product has been just horrible to watch. It's been really piss poor. Mark and Wildfire chimes in. Q, yes, without a doubt, one of the worst Super Bowl games I've ever seen. I thought the quarterback was absolutely overwhelmed. You're speaking of Drake May. I'm going to assume, Darnold didn't put up, monster numbers, but listen, it just was not a good game. I mean, we watched. JP again chimes in. Q, did you see the stat? 2025 playoff run was the worst by a quarterback who started 3 games in a postseason since 2000 in terms of total EPA. Wow. Interesting. So Collins in 2000 had 5 touchdowns, right? In that NFC championship game through 4 interceptions in the Super Bowl. Garoppolo had a bad run with the 49ers, right? Rich Gannon, remember that Oakland team? I think he had 6 or 7 picks. But again, everyone's got different metrics, right? Everyone's got different metrics. Mind numbing 6 chimes in. Q was bad. Patriots also played 4 of their top defenses in the NFL. Texans, Chargers, Broncos, Seattle, all have great defenses. Yep. Max says Q going from MVP runner up to being the worst playoff quarterback than 39-year-old Peyton Manning, whose thrown shoulder was hanging off a bone. That is disgusting. Yeah, listen, I think we're being overly critical of Drake May. He played poorly. And they had a bad run in the playoffs with him. They had a bad run offensively, but they got to the Super Bowl. But I just think it just totally just crushed them. Uh, Redhead Librarian chimes in. Q, did you see the jock tax for Sam Darnold? Think about this. You're forcing pro athletes who don't live in a state to fork over a percentage of your yearly income based on the number of days that you work in California. This is bullshit. Darnold received close to 200,000 for winning the Super Bowl. Q. He now owes California 249,000. I know, it's horrible. That's horrible. That's an insane tax bill. That's what Joey said. Get the game out of California. Get the game out west. Stick it in Florida. Hey, Sam Darnold, you just won the Super Bowl. What are you going to do next? I'm going to pay a shitload in taxes. Thanks, California. Go F yourself. I mean, that's exactly where we're at. 178,000 for winning, but you owe California 249,000. I mean, wow. That's ridiculous. By the way, the 249 represents their, I think, like a pointed share of the total annual compensation because of his base salary, signing bonus incentives. But still, come on. It's ridiculous. I mean, that tax, every state with income tax does that to athletes. We understand that. California takes it to another friggin' level. So obviously, every other state taxes the income made while in the state, but in this case, the taxes are like $1.78. I mean, they're bending you over, man. They're trying to tax you on your total annual salary based on the percentage of games played in California. Yeah, you're not going to Disney. You're paying a hefty bill. You're paying a hefty bill. My man Pots and Pans Costco. That's exactly what I said yesterday, brother. That game was over at 9-0. That game was over essentially at 9-0 because it gave you the appearance. It felt like it was 17-0. Agree 100%. Agree 100%. It was just not competitive. It was morphing in. It was trending into that. It really was. It was trending towards being one of those ugly games. It's one of the reasons, again, on the record, I said 31-13. Did not feel this game was going to be compelling in any way, shape, or form. Denver would have put up a bigger fight. Baltimore's got to be kicking themselves. The Buffalo Bills have to be kicking themselves. Hell, the Eagles have to be kicking themselves. The Eagles have to be kicking themselves. You had a road that would allow you to get back to the Super Bowl, defend your crown, beat up on New England, and go back to back. Mark chimes in. Q, I just read the story that Campbell said he tore a ligament in his left knee this season. He wasn't 100% for the playoffs, but said, quote, it's not an excuse. It's not. It's not an excuse. He just did not. It was a rough day for that kid, man. It was a rough day. Casey chimes in. Q, I know you're talking about Kirk Cousins and the Jets. No, thank you. But think about the challenge. I think you talked about it with Lloyd Vance. No franchise quarterback in sight, not a free agent. You might go the bridge route. I'm not going to agree with you, but I'm not going to disagree with you. You have some huge quarterback targets in 27. With that being said, do you think the Jets basically kind of quote tank? And I know you hate that expression. And if so, if they lose out, if they go say 4-13, does Glenn get fired? And then they got a top 5 draft pick. Now, that's a lot to unpack. The Jets are in trouble because they're going to have to go the bridge route. And that would concern me because typically it doesn't always work out. Now, Darnold, different animal. We saw what he was able to do last year, spit the bit week 17 against the Lions with the top seed on the line, spit the bit against the Rams where he was harassing that game and sacked 9 times. But he was able to get it together. Seattle took a shot. They jettisoned Geno Smith. They went with Darnold. Their return on the investment paid off in spades, no doubt. No doubt. That's kind of a rare type of scenario. With the Jets to me just don't have a ton of talent on the defensive side of the ball. That worries me. And you have a defensive minded head coach in Aaron Glenn, which also worries me. Offensively, they got a couple playmakers. But I don't know if a Kirk Cousins wants to go to New York. There's talk that Derek Carr might come out of retirement. I mean, if he unretires, I think the Saints have some options, right? Because you can technically trade him. You can technically from what I was reading at the time, it was all about the shoulder, right? Now, apparently the shoulder's healed. He feels he can come back. He's got functional movements. He can throw. Now he's sparking a little interest, right? So again, he's 34. He's still relatively young. He's still young. But here's the thing. If there are teams out there like the Jets, like Miami, like Arizona, like Cleveland, hell, uh, Indianapolis, who knows what's going to happen with Daniel Jones? I mean, what if Daniel Jones is fully healthy and there's going to be a couple suitors based on 11 games before he went down? I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. So now you're exploring the option of Derek Carr. Now, what happens is New Orleans can sit there and say, okay, what kind of compensation are we going to get? I mean, think about that. Now, you might get second or third round. With the Vikings, all these scenarios, right? With the Vikings go make a play for a veteran quarterback, you're going to have to gauge the level of interest, period. And the Saints are going to get compensation. Now, it's not going to be, a first round pick, but third round, you get something. So now all of a sudden, you got 8 or 9 picks, including inside the top 10. But the Jets are in trouble. It's one of the reasons that if you're a Jet fan and you go the bridge route, don't expect to win a lot of games. It's another reason I think that Aaron Glenn is on the hot seat. I really don't believe I don't believe he's going to survive the season. I think the Jets are going to be that bad after 1-5, 1-6. Something's going to happen. He is going to, push back at the media. There's just going to be some type of blowback, something. And that's going to be it. It's a dysfunctional franchise. When you have the owner coming out and throwing the quarterback under the bus, never a good thing. It's never a good thing. And I think that's where you're at if you're a Jets fan, to answer your question. It's just not good. And it's not like there's a ton of talent at the quarterback position. We know which direction the Raiders are going to go. Again, worst kept secret in the NFL. And I told you this yesterday. Out of all these bad teams that we've been talking about, let's remember something. The Raiders, they've got a substantial amount of draft picks. They do. They've got a lot of draft picks. So they can be very creative. They're going to draft Fernando Mendoza. We know that. It's pretty much a done deal. Kubiak's going to be their head coach. We know that it's a done deal. I don't know what's going to happen to Max Crosby, but you still have Bowers, you still have Genty, you've got some weapons, you got some young defensive players, and you got a lot of money to spend. So they'll probably go tackle late, second round. They'll probably go with a wide receiver, give another weapon to the young kid. They'll probably go defense late when they have these fourth round draft picks, and they're going to rebuild. They're going to retool. These other teams, these really, bad teams that we talk about, the Jets right now, look, they've got draft picks, but I think they're going to have to go defense. I think they're going to go defense with their number 2 pick. I don't know if they're going to, I don't think they're going to trade it back. And then Arizona, they need a bridge quarterback, but they got to fix that offensive line. And they're number 3. And then you got Tennessee, who won 3 games. Tennessee's got to fix their defense. They believe that they have a franchise quarterback, even though it's a sample size and they had a massive overhaul with the GM and the head coach 4, 5, 6 games into this kid's rookie season. If you go defense, great, but you still have to address the offensive line. You can't have Cam Ward getting sacked 50-something odd times. You just can't. So that's the Titans. And then you look at the Giants, and I think the Giants, first and foremost, they're going to go out and get a playmaker. And listen, if that kid Tate's on the board from Ohio State, you grab him, you run. You run. And that's another weapon for Jackson Dart. They're going to have to pay Robinson. They're going to get Neighbors back. You got Theo Johnson. You got running back by committee. Offensively, Scatterbill, right? Singletary, Tracy. Dart comes back. He's good. He's not running around like a madman taking hits. Offensively, I think they'll be able to produce and put up some points. I'm still a little concerned with the defense, but I'll trust in Harbaugh. But the Jets are just in a no-win situation. They're in a no-win situation. All right, 3:08, quick timeout, a couple minutes to play with before we wrap it up. As I mentioned, a little power hour. We got hoops soon, but a little power hour on a Tuesday. All right, so I told you we were trying to rank, this Super Bowl. I mentioned you some of the worst ones of all time. Um, I think it's, I think it's up there to be quite honest. But you had the Blunder Bowl, right? You had Denver back in the day. The Seattle and the Broncos was horrible. That was 48-3. It was it was just not competitive. And I think this one, it was unwatchable. It was because the offensive play was bad. So if I'm ranking them, if I'm giving you my 5 worst Super Bowls of all time, The 49ers blasting the Broncos, that's the largest blowout in Super Bowl history. It was one-sided, it was boring, it was a disgrace, 55-10. The Ravens against my Giants, like I said, they just dominated that game. If it's not for Ron Dixon, you're going to get your first shutout. That was really bad. The Washington Denver one, Doug Williams, that was kind of a blowout, a tough watch. Last year was a tough watch as well. I mean, that game was not even remotely competitive. I would say that this one was right up there because it was just a dominating performance. When you have an offensive team, an NFL team that has 50 something yards. I mean, this wasn't Eli, to Tyree, Eli to Plaxico, Eli to Manningham. This wasn't Joe Montana to, Taylor, right? This is not Big Ben to Holmes. I mean, this was just a bad game. It was a really bad game. 51 total yards of offense for the Pats in the first half, second fewest for a team in the Super Bowl this century. Chiefs had 23 last year against the Eagles. Bad. I mean, you could have taken a nap and woke up and realized the outcome. So I would definitely go with the Ravens and the Giants was bad. Denver and the 49ers was bad. Denver and Seattle was bad. I wasn't around people talking about the Blunder Bowl, right? The Blunder Bowl, I think it was Denver and the Cowboys. They had 5 turnovers. I think it was Super Bowl 5. They dubbed it the Blunder Bowl. Combined 11 turnovers, 14 penalties. I think 6 turnovers in the first quarter. And oh, by the way, that game, it wasn't Super Bowl 5. I don't think it was Super Bowl 5. I'd have to double check. I think that game was at 1977. Yeah, I think it was 1977, that game. 77-78. Yeah, 27-10, Dallas. Craig Morton had 4 picks, 4 of 15. And I know they went to the backup that passed away a couple years ago. What was his name? To kind of give him a little bit of life in that game. There were a couple plays too. A couple plays that were ruled catches and touchdowns that in today's NFL would never, ever, ever fly. I think the one by Butch Johnson, I mean, it was not, pardon me, it was not even remotely close to being a touchdown. That Denver team was 12-2 that year. They were 12-2. Who the heck was that backup quarterback? He had a unique name, like a really unique name. Norris Weiss. Norris Weiss had a cup of coffee in the NFL, but he came in to try to spell more. And that game was one of the worst. The Seattle game against Pittsburgh years ago, that was a bad, bad game. That was not a watchable game. So I think that's kind of where I think those are, to me, those are kind of the worst games that I can recall. Those are kind of the worst games that I can recall in Super Bowl memory. This past Sunday, right up there. Easily right up there. Unfriggin' watchable. Unwatchable. Unwatchable. Bad all around. Absolutely just bad. Not Bad Bunny. Bad all around. Seeing folks debate where the 24 Eagles rank among Super Bowl champions of this decade. They broke the playoff record queue for most points scored, most turnovers forced, gave Mahomes the most embarrassing loss of his career while blitzing 0%. Convo starts and ends there. But again, it's subjective. That's an opinion. It's subjective, right? Period. So like I said, it's not about moving the goalpost. But if you look at it, the biggest point differential regular season playoffs, Seattle was plus 246 in 2025. And then 2013, they were plus 2035. So, and we're talking about their defense as well. Look, Eagles had a great run and no one's taken, but again, who cares? Would you get an extra trophy? Seriously, did you get an extra trophy for that? I know we love to rank. I get it. Everyone's all about the rankings, the bar talk, let's have it. Boom, boom, boom. Here we go. Q, did you see that Super Bowl 60 betting hits a 10-year low? Nevada, I believe it's just 133. I know you can pull up the numbers. 55% drop. Q, what does that tell you? Well, listen, obviously, a lot of money was wagered on Seattle, right? Covered out 4.5, 5, easy peasy. And so the books obviously lost money. You weren't giving away too much juice wise, but a lot of money was bet on Seattle. I saw a little bit of late money coming in, but I just think this game, the decline. Some player props were not offered. You know, parlays were hit or miss. There wasn't a lot of value, a lot of bang for the buck, to be quite honest. So I think it kind of steered people in a different direction. And I think a lot of people realize, well, why am I betting 150 to win back 100? Not a big deal, right? Um, and there's really not a lot of uh, money to be made. You had to really go and either drive home New England points, money line, or really just lay a lot to win back a little. And it showed you why the line was, 4.5, 5 points, 6 points in a Super Bowl, 4 or 5. That's it to me. That's almost like 7, where we're saying this game's not going to be close. And I just felt that, right? I felt that. Thomas chimes in, Q, I better consistently hear how Sam Darnold with the third most interception was carried by an elite defense, run game, weapon, special teams. Or is that when Hurts wins the Super Bowl? Again, stop. You guys, you're so sensitive. Grow up, dude. I don't think we mentioned Jalen Hurts in 2 friggin' weeks. Like, what are we talking about here with Jalen friggin' Hurts? Jalen Hurts won the Super Bowl. He's a Super Bowl MVP. Who gives a shit? Move on. Seriously, move on. After he won, I basically told you he's a top 10 quarterback. He didn't play like it this year. This is not breaking news. My God, the Eagles fans, like, yeah, you weren't in the Super Bowl. You got your asses handed to you at home against an injury-prone, injury team in San Francisco, and you're still crying. Stop. It's embarrassing. You're just embarrassing yourself with that nonsense. You know it, and I know it. All right, got to start wrapping it up. Woosah Wednesday, manana. We'll get into a little more baseball. Want to get into some NBA and college hoops. Don't forget, we're powered by our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee, 3 Brooks Bourbon. Get ready with tea. Played Against Sports, 2 locations, 1450 Clements Bridge Road in Deptford, New Jersey. Get social with me at Rich Quinones, QNX, IG, TikTok, Rich Quinones Mike. You guys have a wonderful Sports Tuesday. We got a boatload of hoops games to call in about 2 hours or so, plus a little overnight action overseas. Also, as I mentioned, we've got the Warriors Cup League semifinals, finals, I should say, this weekend. I'll post out the link if you guys want to join me on the YouTube channel and get up at 12:30 in the morning, 1 o'clock. That would be wonderful. As always, you guys have a wonderful Sports Tuesday. We will talk to you mañana on a Woosah Wednesday edition of On Q. Until then, I'm Rich Quinones. Be safe, be sound. Hasta luego, buen día.